As Egypt suffers high inflation, the repercussions of its currency fluctuation and stock market volatility, the IMF says it expects Egypt's economy to grow by 4% this fiscal year, by 5.3% next year, and 5.7% in 2025. And I'm joined by Farah Mourad, Senior Market Analyst at XTB. Mina, thanks so much for joining us today, Farah. Now, Egypt's December inflation numbers came in at 21.3%. The currency devaluation brought food and beverage inflation to 37.2% year on year. Why is Egypt seeing persistent high inflation while other countries have already come off their peaks?
First, thank you for having me today. And it's a very interesting question, especially when we're discussing Egypt. Okay, we have inflation pressures. We're seeing it all over the globe. Of course, we would say a war between Russia and Ukraine affected Egypt in a certain kind of way, in a very specific kind of way. But what we are seeing that is mainly, we would say, in the Egyptian case, is this floating of the currency that came after all these issues, which making things a little bit worse. It was needed so we can get the help also from the IMF, but you will see this high inflation until we really see implementations of these so-called reforms.
We did see a rally in the Egyptian market recently, but it dropped to its lowest level since March 2020. On this inflation news, what are your projections for the Egyptian stock market?
And also, just to be fair, like this trends that we are seeing, especially in the Egyptian market, is also a trend we're seeing in the international ones. Whenever we're seeing big hopes for stocks maybe easing when it comes to energy prices, we're seeing the bulls are back to the market. They're just waiting for the opportunity. Everyone is just wondering, when would I want to buy the lows, instead of actually still feeling and just quitting the market altogether. This is still the sentiment so far. Expectations for the long term, especially when we're seeing a lot of IPOs, especially in, we would say, industries that are quite interesting. They're not a trend. They're not just technology hub that we were seeing in Egypt in the last year or two. We're talking about banking system, infrastructure, the interest of the GCC in this country also when it comes to shipping, ports. These kind of projects are beyond how the market is behaving on a short term. Their plans also to maybe enter Africa through Egypt. The benefits of the geopolitical situation of Egypt also in the Middle East will give her this, I would say, fundamental help for the stock market in the mid-term and the long term. And also the IPOs and the public sectors that we're seeing right now, bringing more transparency to investors. It would definitely help the stock market on the mid-term and long term, as much as we could really use the help from IMF to do these reconstructions or reforms in this time period. We would see that Egypt might really be a new hub in the region on the midterm and long term.
Let's talk about the IMF loan for a moment. I mean, it's $3 billion, but it says that Egypt needs to secure another $14 billion in additional financing from GCC countries and other partners, probably about nearly $7 billion from the GCC. How will Egypt meet these expectations?
I believe maybe the time period would be more than what we're maybe expecting at this moment, but it's definitely a possible plan. With the interest still going on from whether Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. But I believe maybe at this moment we need to check where these investments should really be concentrated. I believe, for example, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to banking, when it comes to port, as I was saying, and shipping, these kind of projects can really bring this amount of money. Telecom, for example, companies, especially their introduction to Africa as well. I believe these places, these projects can really bring this amount of money to Egypt.
Thanks for your analysis. Farah Mourad, Senior Market Analyst at XTB. Mina.